Stealing the clicker from you so I can be your clicker.
The clicker. Thank you. Appreciate it. Good evening, everyone. Whoa, the mic is loud. Good evening to each of you and welcome to the Social Justice, Race and Equity Commission meeting. This is our July 15th, 2021 meeting, and I'd like to now call our meeting to order. Thank each of you for being here this evening. Also to our viewers that are online, hello, welcome. Welcome to you as well. Thank each of you for taking time out of your busy schedule for being here. Thank you to our Marriott, this is not the Marriott, the Doubletree. Okay, all right, Doubletree. Thank you to our Doubletree servers and the staff. You're doing such a great job. I know, right? Stop right there. Okay. And also thank you to the City of Brookhaven's staff and liaison. You're making this all happen. Zach, thank you very much. As well as Chrysalis Labs, our consultant. Thank you for doing such a great job. There's a lot of work that goes on in the background to make this all happen. And we really owe them a debt of appreciation because there's a lot that goes on in the background. Thank you. I get all the CC emails, and when I see all the communication that's going on in the background, there's a lot that's going on in the background. So thank each of you for working in the capacity in which you're serving for this very important topic. Next on the agenda, I will do a roll call of our commissioners, and just to make certain they can hear us and respond as I'm calling the roll. Is that correct? So if they can't, just make sure that, I'm sorry, if you can't hear us when I call you. Okay, so I'll be calling the roll at this time. Commissioner David Alexander. Some of the commissioners are in the room and some are online. So what I would ask the commissioners online to do is to enter in the chat if you're present so that we can keep the mic open for acknowledging the commissioners in the room. So we'll watch the chat. Mindy, if we can do that, thank you. Commissioner Arif. Commissioner Sharak Arif. I thought I saw. Okay. Commissioner German Barada. Commissioner Rudy Becerra. Commissioner Charlene Bowden. Thank you. Commissioner Davis Burnett. Commissioner Verna Kane. Commissioner Karen Curiello. Commissioner Kane is online. Thank you. Thank you, Mindy. Commissioner Karen Curiello. Online. Thank you. Commissioner Lauren Collins. Commissioner Lauren Collins. Commissioner Chris Corsez Zimmerman. Commissioner Chris Corsez Zimmerman. Commissioner Amy Korn. Commissioner Ruben Cruz. He's traveling. Commissioner John Funny here. Commissioner Hardy. Jose Hardy. Online. Thank you. Commissioner Josh Hershen. Commissioner Josh Hershen. Commissioner Monique Wright Hudson. Thank you. Commissioner Danita Knight. Commissioner Tawana Minor. Commissioner Jim Moses. Online. I saw him earlier. Commissioner Catherine Murray-Worthy Wall. Right in front of me. Thank you. Commissioner William Naglish. Commissioner Kirk Nelson. Commissioner Janice Nisi. Commissioner Melissa Owen. Commissioner Matthew Petzold. Commissioner Marco Palma. Thank you. Commissioner Axia Pascal. Where did she go? There she is. Commissioner Tiffany Russell. Thank you. Commissioner William Thomas. Thank you. Commissioner Connie Todd. Commissioner Annabelle Torres. Commissioner Kathy Wells. Commissioner Beth Wendell. Commissioner Kyle Williams. And Commissioner Tom Woodward. Did I miss anyone? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Zaki Unwood. How did I miss you that time? All right. Several commissioners reached out and shared that they will be traveling on vacation during the summer months. That's understandable. But I know that they have committed to getting the work done on the subcommittee. So I want to thank the commissioners that may be traveling for your summer vacation. Now that we can travel, thank you for your commitment and loyalty to this work. Each of you should have received a copy of the June 17th, 2021 meeting minutes as you entered this evening. You should have received the meeting minutes. At this time, I will entertain a motion for the acceptance of the June 17th, 2021 meeting minutes. Commissioner Woodward. Is there a second? Thank you. It's been properly moved and second that we accept the meeting minutes. Is there any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Seeing none. All those in favor of accepting the meeting minutes, state aye. All those who oppose, this is the COVID way of doing it, state nay and state your name for the record, even if you're online. Hearing none, the meeting minutes have been accepted as presented. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we will do the adoption of the agenda. Each of you should have received the agenda coming in tonight. I will entertain a motion for the adoption of the agenda for our mode of operation of business tonight. Is there a second? It's been properly moved and second. Thank you. Is there any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Any unreadiness? Seeing none, all those in favor state aye. All those who oppose state nay and state your name for the record. No opposition. We have unanimously accepted the agenda. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Today we will take nominations and a vote to appoint a vice chair of this commission. In this role, the vice chair will assist the chair with providing leadership on commission functions as needed. They will also help to foster trust and motivation by promoting an inclusive and productive atmosphere at commission meetings and collaborating with commission members to ensure that the Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission achieves its mission and goals and fulfill its mandated responsibilities. So this person will assist me and the commission as a whole and will be available in my absence to carry on the business of this commission. At this time, I would take nominations from the floor for vice chair. Yes, Tom, Commissioner Woodward. Tawana Minor. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Is there a second to that nomination? Is there a second? I see a second hand. Okay, we have a second. Are there any other nominations? Say that again. Danita Knight. Is there a second to that nomination? It's second. If we don't have any other nominations, can I get someone to close the nomination, please? If there's no other nominations, can I get someone to close the nomination? Someone needs to move to close. Thank you. It's been properly moved. Is there a second? It's been properly moved in second. Thank you, Ms. Nisi. I'm sorry, Janice. It's been properly moved in second that we close the nomination on the two said names, Tawana Minor and Danita Knight. So at this time, I think it's in order that we allow each candidate to give a 30-second, a 30-second spill so that our commissioners would know who is vying for a spot of vice chair. And we have Knight, and then we have M. We have K and M. So K comes before M. Danita Knight.
Come to dinner, you end up getting nominated. You have to provide remarks. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I appreciate the nomination. I was not looking for this, just for the record. So Tawana and I need to talk, play Let's Make a Deal or something perhaps, but I am so proud to be on the commission and just so pleased with all of the good work that I'm seeing all of us do and the direction that things seem to be going in. So all joking aside, if there's any role that I can play, if not this one, something else, I welcome that opportunity. So is that my 30 seconds, Chairman Funny? Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Knight. And next we will have Commissioner Minor. My computer is reminding me that I have a Zoom call now, but I'm here.
All right, can you all hear me? All right, good evening. Well, gosh, in the spirit of Danita as well, I mean, I am thrilled to, first of all, just be a part of the commission. So no matter what role I serve, I'm going to keep doing the work that we all signed up to do. Whether you vote for me or not, it is all good because, you know, whether it's her, whether it's me, or whether it's in partnership, we're here to serve and achieve one goal. And, you know, I'm all in. Like you, I've got a lot on my plate as well, right? But if voted in to serve, I can assure you and commit to you that I will serve you well and continue to make sure that I represent all of us in any of the work that we do together, and also echo the great work that each of us are doing. I also want to just acknowledge the city of Brookhaven for having the courage to do this work, because this is not easy work. It's not comfortable work. And I really want to acknowledge that and thank the city of Brookhaven for the courage that they've had to do this. So thank you all.
Okay, thank both of you for offering your service in addition to what you're already doing in serving. So I really appreciate you stepping to the plate and being available and making yourself available for this role. So at this time, we will take votes. So we will go in alphabetical order. Commissioner Danita Knight. All those are in favor of Commissioner Knight as vice chair. I'm sorry? So I believe in Robert Rules of Order. If I get a motion, if I get a motion. And it's been second. Uncle Robert is happy right now. So we have a motion on the floor to have co-vice chairs to serve this august body of leaders in the city of Brookhaven. And our co-vice chairs would be Commissioner Danita Knight and Commissioner Tawana Minor. Is there any opposition? Are y'all ready to clap and celebrate? Any opposition? We have the vote for the record. All right, seeing no opposition, no unreadiness, we call for a vote at this time. All those in favor of having two vice co-chairs signify by stating aye. Aye. All those who oppose signify by stating nay and state your name for the record. Congratulations, we have two. I really appreciate you, both of you, offering up your service. There's a lot of work, great work that has been going on in the subcommittees. And I feel very comfortable with having two vice co-chairs to really assist in this capacity, because there's a lot of work that you've done, each of us have done, and we're rolling into some bigger and better pieces in the near future. And I'm excited about it. So welcome aboard. We'll be having a call meeting probably within a week. All right. I know, right? Next on our agenda is our moment of inspiration. And I want to really share a few words with you before this gentleman, great gentleman, comes before us this evening. Retired Brigadier General Richard B. Dix. He'll tell you his story, but he grew up in Linwood Park here in Brookhaven. And he experienced what a lot of people experience in Brookhaven as a city that dealt with issues during the time things were happening in Brookhaven. And he's going to tell you about it. But what I'm excited about is that he committed himself to the United States service to protect all of us in this world. And he's traveled to Europe, to Germany, to Saudi Arabia, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. And I'll read a brief intro, and I can't do it any justice, because in order to introduce Richard, it will probably take a good hour and a half. And I know I'm not going to do it any justice, but I'm going to try. Dix, with over 34 years in the armed services, he served the nation as leader at every level. A native of Atlanta, Georgia, Brookhaven, Linwood Park. He graduated from the Armor Officer Basic Course. He served as tank platoon leader, 3rd Battalion, 69th Armor, 24th Infantry Division. He also served as the executive officer for the A Company HQ Command and a 224th Forward Support Battalion during Operation Desert Shield Storm. The brigade deployed to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, where Dick served as the BDE S4 FWD during Operation Desert Defiance. Upon redeployment, he served as the Chief of Supply and Services, 32nd 80 COM G4. Dick served in Germany, where he was assigned to the 21st Theater Support Command, TSC. He also served as the Deputy Chief of Plans and Exercises, G3, 21st TSC, Group S3, 29th Support Group, Support Operation Officers, 200th Material Management Center, Brigade Executive Officer, 29th SG, and he culminated as the 29th SG Rear Group Commander during the group's successful deployment as the Joint Logistics Command for Combined Joint Task Force 76, Afghanistan, Operation Enduring Freedom. I'll stop there. It goes on, and I tell you, his bio is so rich with him committing himself to service for this country. And because we're discussing social justice, race, and equity, he fought and protect everyone, not just whites, not just blacks, not just Hispanics, not just Asian. He protected the world. With that, I want to say to Richard Dix, thank you for your service and your leadership in our great country. Now, there's another story about Richard Dix. Richard Dix attended South Carolina State University. So I knew Richard Dix in college. And here's how we reconnected. We reconnected in Brookhaven, Georgia, in Linwood Park at the Recreation Center at a Martin Luther King dinner. I didn't even know Richard grew up in Brookhaven. He was like, you live in Brookhaven. I grew up in Brookhaven. That's how we reconnected. But I knew Richard in college. He played football. I was the dormitory assistant in the football dome where he lived. I know some bad stuff to you. No. But Richard was a great inspiration on our football team. He was our kicker, did a great job playing football at the university, and he got commanded into the ROTC, through our ROTC Bulldog Battalion battalion at South Carolina State University, and went on into the military after being commissioned as an officer upon graduation. And he graduated in the same year I graduated, the year of 1987. So Richard, I'm sorry, Brigadier General retired Dix, come on up and give us a word of inspiration.
So good evening. Is this one working? Okay. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, because I don't like to quote, and I want to walk, and I love to talk. And I want to say thank you to this commission, first of all. And John won't go into a lot of detail, but Leslie helped me put some keys to success that I think you guys need to focus on and think about. And the first one is communication. Open and honest, value all input that you receive, and set goals. And then strive to achieve those goals. And you will achieve success. So, Linwood Park, a moment of inspiration. I love the way God tells me that I'm in the right place at the right time. Because everything that I was preparing to talk about, we talked about at the table in an exercise that I had no idea was coming. I had just got off the highway from Fort Benning, Georgia, doing a tech demonstration to protect America's greatest treasure, your sons and daughters. And John called, and I didn't think that he was going to remember that he had invited me to come and do a moment, because John waited till absolutely the last minute. And I said, man, you must have LoJack on me, because I just left Fort Benning scrambling, trying to get here tonight to do this. Because when a friend, a brother from another mother asks, you move your schedule to make things happen. But more importantly, I wanted to talk to this body about where I came from and how I got to where I am. And it's a village that helped me get here. But the village didn't just look like me, Miss Nisi. It looked like you and Tom and my Latino and Hispanic brothers and sisters. It was a combination of those that I looked like, all coming together. And the moment of inspiration that I want to leave with you is that there was a little kid that went to Montgomery Elementary, and he was in the second, third, or fourth grade, and he was told he was not going to succeed, and he had come from Linwood Park, and he was probably going to end up in jail just like everybody else that came from Linwood Park. And there was another shero. Her name was Miss Sloan. She was my second grade teacher. And Miss Sloan wrote my mother a personal letter after an incident at the school where I was told that I was going to jail and I'll probably be there before I got to high school. And Miss Sloan said, "Dear Ms. Dix, there's something about this young man that is your son that is extremely special. And God has placed in him the ability to talk and to be outgoing, curious, and very demanding about where he knows he wants to go as early as second grade. And I knew I wanted to be a soldier. And I started doing research in the history behind it. But in that day in Linwood Park, and Charlene knows this very well because that's my sister from another mother that I've been knowing my whole life. And we've gone to church together. So I've known John for 35, and I've known Charlene for a long time. But back in the early 60s, I told John, and John had no idea this existed. At the end of Mendale Circle, there was a wall to the left of Linwood Park that ran the length of Linwood all the way up to Osborne Road. And on the right, there was another wall / fence that separated us from Silver Lake community and Herman Lake community to the left of us. We were not allowed to go there. We were told that we couldn't go swimming. They had the only pool in the whole entire area. And heroes, just like you and you, Tom, petitioned DeKalb County and the city of Chamblee at the time to get us a pool that was for Blacks only. And that was the only recreation that we had. But that was critical because that's where I learned how to swim. And that would pay huge dividends later on in my military career because I was a multifaceted cadet that could swim. I went to school with other cadets that had no idea how to put their head underwater and begin to even try to swim. And we struggled, or they struggled, at water training at Fort Benning, Georgia. And it had impacts that were long and far-reaching later on in life for them. But I was one of those kids that had a great village that brought things together. And there was one individual in particular that is very special that put me on the track early. And his name was John Niles. He was an author, he was a dad, and he was a Christian that believed in everyone is created equal in God's eyes. And he wrote a book that when I was in the 5th grade, he sat me down at his house. And keep in mind, it was the first time that a Black had been from Linwood Park over to the community that's just on the other side of Blackburn Park. So guess what? When my father drove me to that house for me to visit my best friend, Ben Niles, we got out of the car and everybody came out of their door to say, "Hey, are y'all lost? And why are you here?" And Mr. Niles came out of his house and said, "No, they're my honored guests and they're in the right place. Come on in and have a seat." And my dad stopped at the door and we're not going. And Mr. Niles said, "John, what's wrong?" And my father said, "We're not allowed to go in the front door." Now this is 1973, 74. And he said, when I delivered groceries from the drugstore that was right up on P Street, right across from where the now Brookhaven Martyr Station is, he used to always have to go to the back to deliver the groceries. And Mr. Niles looked at me and said, "John, you're always welcome in my house. And my door is always open and you come through the front door. And I'm honored to have you here." And then they sat down, they shared a beer, which was unheard of. And Mr. Niles had been working on his book. And me being curious, picked up the book and, instantly captivated. And the book titled something like, "If Black was white and white was Black, how would our society be today?" And what he did was he inverted all of the privilege and gave it to my community, and then talked about how we would And if whites were in our shoes, how would they react? But more importantly, how would we treat them? And I remember having a conversation with him that stuck with me, and it still sticks with me today. And he said, Richard, how would you treat me if the shoe was on the other foot? And I looked at him, I said, Mr. Niles, I would always invite you into my house, because for me to be here means so much. But for the first time in my young life, I saw my father open up and really reach across the aisle to shake somebody's hand that wanted to shake his hand. So the work that you're doing on this commission is to be commended. I honor and I'm humbled that John and the rest of his committee asked me to come and share a brief moment. But the one thing I want to leave you with, what if Mr. Niles had never invited us to his house? What if the rest of the village had not put their arms around me and shaped and molded me? What if I had not been the first African-American kid to play soccer at Blackburn Park? What if I had quit when I was called all kinds of names, didn't understand, probably about 9 years old, and I would laugh at the kids, they were laughing and calling me Sambo, calling me the N-word, calling me a baboon, and I just didn't understand it. But my mom sat me down and told me what was going on. And more importantly, Ben Niles and Pat Williams, are great friends today, said, hey, we're better than that. And you deserve to be here, you need to be here. Because as I was telling John and the folks that are at my table, that skill set that I got from playing soccer at Blackburn Park enabled me to go to college, 4 years, all expenses paid, on a football scholarship, and then really realize my dream and get to the Army through another scholarship, and to become the first academic All-American at South Carolina State's history. But more importantly, the things that I'm doing now to give back to the community would never have been possible had it not been for Mr. Niles. So the housing that I'm building for homeless veterans, for those that have been impacted by COVID, for those that have been displaced from natural disasters, none of it would be possible without it. And you have a responsibility to reach back and leave nobody behind. Nobody. I've walked the streets of Beaufort Highway. My brother, my sister, my brother. Your community is my community. And I promise you, I'm gonna work with John and the rest of the councilmen and women to give back, to make a difference, and to lift up. So the next general fix is out there in these neighborhoods. That's why this commission is so critical. You got to identify them, get them, and then you got to lift them up, because we're gonna need them sooner or later. Y'all have a great evening. Cool.
Wow. Retired Brigadier General Richard B. Dix, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule and being here, bringing those moments of inspiration. And he was right. I called him just to check in this morning. He was driving back from Fort Benning, and he said, yeah, I get back in about 4 or 5 hours. And we talked. I mean, we're classmates, and we lived in the same dorm, and we began to talk about Brookhaven. And I began to share with him about the things that we do as a commission, and I think I shared with him about me going out to Cross Keys last January 2020 to initiate a youth mentoring group with the young men there. Did that one time, and then I went back the next month in February for the career day and had universities there to recruit the students to go to college, and then COVID hit. But out of that conversation, you know what General Dick said? When you go back, call me, I wanna go too. So he's always donating himself to doing the right thing in the city of Brookhaven, and more specifically to the students and the youth that exists here, because he's right. we need and we have more General Dicks in the community. We want to thank you for coming out. Next, I'm going to bring up Mindy, and Mindy is going to give us a history lesson in the city of Brookhaven.
All right. It's been a little while since we did history of Brookhaven because our agendas were just so packed, but we thought we could squeeze it into today's. And so if you recall, we've talked about Linwood Park a little bit. We talked about historic Brookhaven. Right. And today I want to drive down to the southern end of Brookhaven and talk about the Beaufort Highway corridor, which is special for a number of reasons. One of the things that I find most fascinating is that when we talk about Beaufort Highway, we rarely talk about Beaufort Highway as in the segment that is in Brookhaven and the segment that runs through Dorville. Beaufort Highway is sort of like an organism that's developed on its own thanks to the different largely immigrant communities that have built it up. So I will try to focus a little bit though about the segment that is in Brookhaven. But first of all, Beaufort Highway is a 30-mile long corridor, if you didn't know that. It was built in the 1930s. It was a federally funded project, and the purpose of it was to connect Atlanta to the bucolic countryside of Beaufort Dam up there. And 3 miles of that 30-mile highway run through the city of Brookhaven. In the 1960s, this particular area became extremely popular for suburban development. That's when the apartments and the strip malls that we're all most familiar with now started cropping up. And then by the 80s and 90s, the affordability of the rentals along the corridor became popular among immigrants, largely from Latin American countries, Asian countries, and South American countries. Today, we all know it for the hub that it is, for a wide diversity of different restaurants and businesses. That's why it's also famous nationally and attracts people from all corners. Immigrant families, including my own, as I was growing up, we would flock to Beaufort Highway to dine and shop at places that reminded us of home. Although Brookhaven can only lay claim to a little small portion of Beaufort Highway, it is home to the Latin American Association, a nonprofit. Woo! And we have some well-connected folks here today representing LAA. It was a nonprofit founded in 1972 to empower Latinos to adapt, integrate, and thrive. And over a dozen Latin American restaurants just in the Brookhaven portion. And then it's also home to the newly developed Peachtree Creek Greenway, a bicycle and pedestrian friendly path that runs along the Peachtree Creek and will hopefully one day connect Atlanta, Brookhaven, Chamblee, and Dorville. And then the pictures that I have here are Havana Sandwich Shop. This is a very old Cuban restaurant that is in Brookhaven. And then, of course, LAA. I found this, I pulled this from Yale's Instagram. That's a great picture. So one thing that's important to know about Beaufort Highway is that, like so many different pockets and neighborhoods around the metro Atlanta area, once popular for its affordability is now experiencing gentrification. The area, which consists of over 30 multi-family apartments, has seen consistently rising rents over the past few years, and newer, more costly apartments are changing the demographic. So to address this, the city of Brookhaven has adopted some zoning ordinances, which we applaud them for, with incentives that encourage affordable housing. There's some worry it's not enough. What we do know is that without intervention, the area will likely lose its character, its immigrant population that has really carried the responsibility for creating the vibrant diversity that it has. And so, yeah, that's Beaufort Highway.
Thank you, Mindy, for that rich history on Beaufort Highway. It's a very important and significant corridor in the city of Brookhaven. And we're excited about the fine eateries that's on Brookhaven that I visit, and that's on Beaufort Highway that I visit frequently. So thank you very much, Mindy. Next up, we have a video that we would like to share with the commission.
Well, it's almost been a year since Brookhaven officials created a commission to examine social justice and equity.
The group of nearly 40 volunteers was created in the wake of nationwide protests over police brutality and racial inequality.
New tonight at 11, News Edge reporter Brian Hill takes a look at what that commission has accomplished so far.
Since starting this initiative last summer, I'm told the commission has been meeting regularly as they continue to conduct interviews, collect data, including statistics on arrest and city employee demographics, and analyze that data to see what inclusive changes are needed in Brookhaven.
To see if there's an opportunity for improvement or tweaking from a different set of lens.
During Monday's virtual town hall, Brookhaven's Social Justice, Race, and Equity Commission chairman noted that there has been difficult conversation as the commission reviews current city policies.
And it's great to hear commission members say, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Okay, but now I can understand. So then that means that we're being very successful with this conversation.
A conversation focused on reviewing the city's hiring practices, affordable housing, public engagement and communication outreach, and the police department's use of force and hiring policy.
They're collecting data on the front end. This is historical data from each of these departments or units within the city. And they're beginning to analyze the data.
From there, Chairman John Funny says the commission will assess the data and begin having a deep conversation with the community about social justice.
We want their input. Everybody doesn't see everything the same way. To have their dialogue and input is so important to us because they may shed light on a subject matter or a topical matter that the commission may not have thought of.
Councilwoman Madeline Simmons and Funny created the initiative in the midst of the civil unrest we saw here in Atlanta and across the country last year, following the deaths of George Floyd and other people killed during encounters with police, including Rayshard Brooks in Southwest Atlanta.
It's unfortunate, absolutely awful that it took the murder of George Floyd and so many others in the spring of 2020 for these conversations to really get deep and to move forward. But that was the silver lining.
Funny says the commission will present its recommendations to City Council later this year. In Brookhaven, Brian Hill, Fox 5 News.
It's an honor to serve as the chair, but I told Brian that all the work happens within the subcommittees, and I appreciate you guys. And young ladies, I keep saying guys, everyone, for all the hard work that you're doing within the subcommittees. And with that, we'll go right into our subcommittee updates, and each of you will get 2 minutes each. I will call on the presenter from each subcommittee, and if you can just give us an update on the progress and accomplishments, challenges and issues, and what are your next steps? What do you have coming up on the horizon? First, we'll hear from Mission and Vision, Tiffany Russell. Tiffany, come on up.
Well, good evening. I am representing the Mission and Vision Subcommittee. And so we've had some really cool work happening over the last couple of months. And I want to publicly thank the subcommittee members for all of the attention that they've taken with the homework assignments and the needed attendance. So thank you. Commissioner Corn presented a model. She's also a member of our subcommittee. And so she has helped us kind of refine how we're looking at the vision and mission. And so we had a brief kind of commercial where she shared with us a model. And so next time we meet in our August meeting, she's going to take us through the whole process by which we examine and create mission. And hopefully that will lead us to the recommendations that we would like to make to the larger commission. We also enjoyed a similar presentation that we all saw when we were together the last time on the Explore Brookhaven survey. And so that was really helpful. And again, painting a fuller picture of the city that we are so fond of and that we also want to examine. And so those were the two pieces of information that we received at our last meeting. Now, the charter is one of those looming issues for us because it is so long and we want to spend some time really being thoughtful about the way that we examine it through an equity lens. And so our next step, our biggest, I think, hurdle is being able to separate the charter and give some homework assignments so that we each have a chance to fully examine the charter. And we've begun doing that, but I think that's the biggest challenge that we have so far. And then what we're looking forward to doing, again, is examining sections of the charter, working with Commissioner Korn as she kind of leads us through this really cool way of thinking about mission writing and envisioning for your city or for your organization, and then being able to make recommendations. Yeah, I think that's it. And then, of course, being able to solicit our community's feedback on our mission and vision statements. So exciting work. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Russell. A lot of work there. It's very exciting to hear another commission leading y'all in that discussion to drive to some thought-provocative things that could happen with, what'd you say, that long mission statement. So thank you and your subcommittee members for all the hard work you're doing there. Next, we're going to hear from hiring and retention, and I'll call on Vice Chair. I got to get it right. Vice Chair Commissioner Minor. Co-Vice Chair.
Oh, hi again. First of all, I just want to acknowledge you, General Dix, and just thank you for your service. So yeah, thank you. Your story was amazing. Just really quickly, I'm going to start in the middle because we talked about challenges and issues at our last meeting, and we decided to kind of move on from that because the challenges and issues really haven't changed. Our subcommittee is around hiring and retention. And I think we've gone as far as we can with the data that we've gotten. And one of the things, and just to kind of remind everybody, is that one of the gaps that we found is that while we do have data, it doesn't really tell the story we feel needs to be told. So we've decided to really kind of shift our focus a little bit, shift our lens. We will still leverage the data, but we need more data. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. So we're moving from data collection really more to community engagement. One of the pieces of the community that we think is critical and we think would be a missed opportunity is if we did not touch the people who work at Brookhaven. Because again, this is hiring and retention, and there is no data and sentiments, if you will, from that population. And we think that that is a core piece of the work that we're doing. So we are thankful that the city of Brookhaven is in support of the idea of a survey. And so we're working on putting some questions together and bringing forth some recommendation based on some best practice questions that are out there around equity as it relates to hiring and retention. And let's see here. And then we're also, Commissioner Kyle Williams is looking into a outside vendor for us because one of the recommendations we want to make when we present the survey question recommendations is to have an outside vendor actually administer the survey. We feel that that would be in the city's best interest. As far as what's next, our goal is by the next subcommittee meeting is to spend our time on those survey questions and get to the point that after that meeting, feel good about what we've come up with as a potential next step to present those to the city. So we've got a lot of work to do over the next couple of weeks, but the subcommittees have been, we broke into 2 subcommittees. So we've both been working really hard on that. And the other piece of information is Christian had agreed to help us get some best practice data from other municipalities that we could also incorporate into our work as well. So that's it for tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Commissioner Minor. We appreciate you and your subcommittee's hard work. Next, we will hear from Procurement and Contracting, Commissioner Jim Moses. And I know I'm going to lose Mike, and you're going to turn it over to Jim online.
Well, hello, everyone. Just to give you a quick overview of what we're doing, I'd like to give a shout out to Alexandra Lorfinkel. She stepped up to the plate big time for us and took our raw questions and formatted them into SurveyMonkey for us. And she's also taken it upon herself to email our survey out to contractors who were not only awarded the contracts, but those who were not awarded contracts. I'm told that's will be done in 2 waves, and there will be an excess of 11,000 emails sent out to different contractors. So what we intend to do is to utilize very strongly the SurveyMonkey tools to generate reports based upon the demographics that the committee identifies will be important to write a recommendation to the city. And hopefully we will give to the city a legacy document that they can use annually to go out and judge themselves their own performance of how they're doing and what their standing is with their customer base, which would be vendors and contractors. So basically, the final thing that we're looking at is to we've been documenting some of the reoccurring ideas that have been coming up during our discussions, and we've posted a bulleted list on our procurement site so that we can go ahead and look at these to help write the final recommendation if the data brings it forward as something very important. So that's what we've been doing so far. So everything's good. I'm very optimistic on what's going on.
Awesome, Tim. I'm glad you're optimistic. They're doing it. You know, I'm going to say this at the end, but I'm going to say it now. These subcommittees, you guys, I really appreciate your hard work. You're doing an awesome job looking at data. You're really exploring what's out there. That's a lot of hard work, and I know this. And I want to thank you for your commitment and your time that you commit to this. You all are volunteers, and this is speaking to your passion and love for the city of Brookhaven. So thank you all for what you're doing. Last up will be policing, and I'm going to bring up Commissioner Monique Hudson, and she will give us an update on policing.
Our commission, our subcommittee, we meet twice a month. I'm sorry. We meet twice a month, and that came from, in the beginning, we were getting so much data from the Brookhaven PD, and every time we had a question, they would come back with more data, and their data wasn't just like raw data. They'd have like pie charts and stuff. And so we needed to get together again to figure out what new questions we had so that they could have data again. So we're past that now. So what we ended up with was we looked and we determined that we had these overreaching issues that were falling into the data and the questions that were kind of just coming out every time at our commission meetings, our subcommittee meetings. And so we ended up with these areas, and then we broke it off into groups, and our groups, our pairs, for those 4 different areas, we ran like the 4P assessment tool with those areas. And so we were dealing with, whether one of them was like the complaint data and what did that look like in the outside review process, and should we recommend something like that? We were also dealing with the ethnicity reporting and what is, who's Hispanic Black, who's Hispanic white, like how is that being determined? What kind of training are we having? What is the mental health aspect looking like now that we know that we have it? The tools to do that, but how is that being deployed and what can we expect from that? And then really just kind of how the community is responding to Brookhaven PD and whether the data is accurate, because are people comfortable even calling the police, or is only one group of people comfortable calling the police, and what does that look like? And so we got all this data, we ran our tools, tried to figure out our people, places, and power that deal with, and what the plan forward would be that deals with those areas. And now from that, we're kind of postured to start making some recommendations and things that we think would be great recommendations, but we were a little earlier, a little ahead of the curve, we're told, on that part. But the good thing for that is that we can come up with some recommendations early, but we're still getting best practices from other communities. And so all these recommendations, before we actually put them forward, we can find out if they've been made before, if they really work, what have been the common pitfalls for those. So we're not recommending things to Brookhaven that have been tried before or have failed before or whatever the idea is. So we're really happy with where we are, in the sense that we can come up with some good ideas and shoot those down and come back with great ideas. And so that's kind of where we are right now. So we're excited. We're still discussing our 4P assessments, and we're collaborating, and we're ready for I think we said, how many meetings have we had? Our 1,003,822 meetings at the end of the month. All right, that's all.
We appreciate all those meetings, and it's working. It's really working. Thank you. Let's give our co-chairs a round of applause. Thank you, guys. You guys, great leadership, great thought-provocative questions that you're asking. I pop in from time to time to subcommittee meetings just to hear what's going on. But I tell you, you guys are rocking and you're doing a great job. So thank you to the co-chairs for the awesome job you're doing. I don't care what anybody says. Brookhaven is the best city, and we have the best citizens here in the city. So thank you for what you're doing for our city. Next up, and I know we have some dignitaries here this evening, and I'm very excited about our dignitaries that are here. And as we do the work of this commission, it's very important to have dialogue with the public, with the citizen, with the community. The work of equity is grounded in hearing and respecting. Listen to me carefully. The work of equity is the hearing and respecting of voices of everyone. Everyone is at the table to provide a voice. In this commission, we will listen as we're going into the community now to listen to our citizens. It means doing all that we can to highlight the real voices and experiences of all residents in the Brookhaven community, so that our recommendations are sound and based in reality and truth. If you notice earlier, they talk about data. Data is truth. Data is reality. It's not something fictitious that's made up. We cannot come to the table with answers derived from data sheets and fact books and on our own perceptions. Instead, we must stop, listen, and include all of the voices in our communities and city. The forming of the commission is a great start in that we have a large and diverse group of commissioners representing Brookhaven's diverse communities. However, we are only a few among many I'm aware of that started some commission that feels that community engagement is the greatest value that we can provide to this work. Therefore, we want to hear from experts in the field who work in our human services and social sector and interact daily with diverse populations here in Brookhaven. I am honored to moderate this panel. I will ask that each panelist 3 questions, and then I'll ask the panelists 3 questions, and then I'll open up to the full commission for additional questions and other responses. I would like them to come up front, and if someone can grab a chair for our speakers. We have 3.
We're a little short on chairs.
Oh, we're short on chairs. Bring your chair from your table. Bring your chair from the table. There we go, 1. While they're doing that, and the panelists are joining us up front, I'll go ahead and start the introductions. You want me to sit down too? Okay, I'll sit down too. Let me get a mic.
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Sure, I can do that. What else I need to do, Mindy? How are you?
Okay.
One more here. Here we go. First, we have Mr. Santiago Marquez, the CEO of Latin American Association. Mr. Marquez is a graduate of Georgia State University and holds advanced degrees in both business and nonprofit administration. Before returning to LAA as CEO in 2020, Marquez worked in many of Metro Atlanta's nonprofits. Most special, Marquez is a Brookhaven native. Let's welcome Santiago Marquez. And then we have Charlene Bryant. She's the founder and president of It's Just Us Productions, executive producer at It's Just Us talk show, and host and producer at It's Just Us radio show, whose programs are heard and seen by national and international audiences. She's also the founder of It's Just Us in Community, which works internationally to promote recognition of our interconnectedness, respecting differences and building bridges by providing educational and cultural programs. Charlene comes to us as a member of the board of directors of the Linwood Park Civic Association in Brookhaven. Let's welcome Charlene. And finally, Kim Anderson. She's a principal with Chrysalis Labs team. She is a nonprofit executive and attorney with proven expertise in setting corporate vision, engaging cross-functional diverse teams, and influencing change. For decades, I didn't write for decades, so that I don't blame. For decades, she has successfully initiated, expanded, and managed organizations such as Families First and Aid Atlanta to strategically implement programs, policies, and strategies to achieve measurable impact. Join me in welcoming Kim. We're gonna jump right into the questions. Here's the first question. In your professional perspective, do you feel there is a need to examine race, equity, and social justice, as is the charge of this commission?
Hello, good evening. And yes, I went to Cross Keys. I'm a graduate of Cross Keys in a class of '88, so very proud of that. And actually walked the streets of Brookhaven to go to my job at Northeast Plaza back in the day. Absolutely, yeah, we definitely need to examine, and I think it needs to be examined in every aspect and every factor, right? We were talking at the table. One of the questions that we talked about was, what's holding our communities back, right? Why is there such disparity between the white community and communities of color? And there's so many things, right? But something as simple as trying to buy a house in excess credit and trying to build wealth. We all know, we're seeing it right now, that even, my home has gone up in equity. The equity has gone up tremendously, right? But that opportunity was not given to my parents, right? They didn't have the opportunity to buy a house. They certainly didn't have an opportunity to buy the house where they could have built serious wealth for our family. So without a doubt, it's impacted in every sector. And the most important thing is, I think, how do generations better themselves? And there are barriers and limitations still to this day for communities of color, in my opinion. So yes, simple answer would be yes. But
yes, to add to that, and I'm with the Linwood Park Foundation. Just wanted to correct that versus Civic Association. My answer also is yes. I believe it's necessary to dispel myths and misunderstandings. I can say this I'm happy to say this because it means that we're talking. I am fourth generation in Linwood Park. And if we were not talking, I wouldn't have a chance to keep telling you all the same story, that I am the fourth generation and have raised 2 generations behind me. And it's this opportunity, is conversations like this, is through my production company that we're able to continue to have these kinds of conversations, to break the stereotypes, to understand where people are, meet that need where they are, or not be able to meet that need where they are. It's both sides of the table, but it takes having the conversations to understand where we are at any given time and move forward and figure out the way forward from that point.
So, want to just say 3 times yes, right? So, I think at the end of the day, it gets back to the conversation we were having earlier about why we're beginning with the data, right? And because the data, quote, doesn't lie. And when you get diverse voices to look at data, then you get to really have honest conversation about what, not only what you see, but what caused what you see. And then because of, if we have an equity conversation, then we have to acknowledge the systemic issues that cause what we see and that we have to disrupt. So there's no question that we have to have this conversation about equity, race, and diversity in diverse settings to have, to enact the change that we want to see. Because if we don't, it's just going to keep repeating itself.
Thank you. Thank you. Having diverse conversation, having the conversation diverse audience, I think that's great. And listening to my cross trees buddies here, I think that's great to have someone that have walked Beaufort Highway and had the great experience that you shared. And from a fourth generation Linwood Park, that's very, very valuable to this discussion because of the history of Linwood Park and the importance of Linwood Park. So thank you for sharing that. You wouldn't tell Richard how many years, but I figured it out. All right. Next question. What have you seen in your work or heard from families and community residents that points to the need for frank discussion of the issues, race, equity, and social justice? I'm going to start with Kim first. Absolutely.
So what I would say is that we, both particularly in the nonprofit sector and the government sector, and public sector, we all too often do to people instead of with people. And because we do to people and we don't, particularly disenfranchised populations, we tend not to listen, we tend to tell. And because of that, we miss opportunity to enact change. So this commission has an opportunity to really enact long-term change, because if you don't empower people to do for themselves, then there will never be long-term change. So engaging families, engaging communities authentically, respectfully is the only way you see long-term change. And we know that historically, we don't have to go back, we go back 50 years, we go back 500 years. We know that is how change happens. And if we don't do it that way, that's why systemic issues can continue to perpetuate themselves. So that's community engagement has value.
What have I seen and heard from families and community residents that points to the need for frank discussions? I struggle in transparency. I struggle with this because what I see and what I hear in those frank conversations is the stories that my grandparents told. Both sets of my grandparents are from Linwood Park. So my parents met in Linwood Park. For those who may not know or may not remember, Linwood Park is known as the oldest Black community in DeKalb County. And the conversations are around gentrification. It's that thing that keeps happening to people of color. It's that thing that keeps getting swept under the carpet because it's supposed to be a celebration of change, a celebration of growth, of opportunities. Yet we have not found, we found the safe places to have the conversation, but we haven't found the people that want to have the conversation because it brings up so much, yet it varies so much. And when I think about Linwood Park, I think about we had our own jitney, who was my cousin. We had 2 beauticians in Linwood Park. We have churches in Linwood Park. We had, oh my gosh, brick masons. We had professional athletes. We had generals. We had Olympic medalists. Linwood Park had all of these things until the day that the conversations were had to see this little community, as General Dix pointed out, that was boxed in. as well as being boxed out. And so it tapped into that intergenerational wealth, right? So we want to teach people, Black people, let me just narrow it all the way down. We want to teach Black people, and why don't they understand the importance of passing on generational wealth? Rosewood, Florida in 1870, a small predominantly Black town that was taken away. Oscarville, Georgia, which is presently known as Lake Lanier. The Atlanta race riots. Orlando, Florida, this small Black community called Paramore, thousands of homes, hundreds of businesses and churches. I-4 cut through that town. Black Miami community, Overtown, was destroyed by what? I-95. Greenwood, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Black Wall Street. Linwood Park, where I'm from. So what are people saying? And what are the frank conversations? They're just not happening. Because when we get to this point of what I'm pointing out, then the bird flies by or the squirrel runs in front of us and we get distracted because we don't want to be accountable for what we would then know if we heard the rest of the story.
I don't think I can follow that. I mean, it's truth. From my perspective, that there isn't a real conversation that's going on yet, right? And it's 2021, and as a leader in the Hispanic community, just this morning, we had a phone call with the Urban League, with the AJC, not the newspaper, but the Jewish organization, with some Asian leaders. And we started, having a conversation around how do we get our communities together and just start having open and honest dialogue. And it's 2021 and we're not there. And I've been working professionally in Atlanta, the birthplace of the civil rights movement, for 20 years. And that has never happened. We've never been able to be at the table and have open and honest dialogue about race. It's just the one thing we can't do, and we haven't done. So when I talk, with amongst my peers and my family members, I think the one thing we have to realize about the Hispanic community is there's a lot of diversity within the Hispanic community. We have a lot of people that loved President Trump in our community. I'm just going to keep it real. And, there's a lot of division within the Hispanic community. And so I think that acknowledging the fact that we are not one, we don't all think alike. We don't all look alike. We have Afro Latinos that are treated terribly in our community, by our own community, barely acknowledged by our own community. We have Asian Hispanics that, nobody's talking about that. And then the Native community, right? The Aborigines, if you would, or the folks that were there, especially in the Caribbean, right? That nobody really talks about. So there's a lot of work to be done within our own community and a lot of honest dialogue that needs to happen within our own community. We have to get through the racism in our own community to be able to come to the table, but we've got to start the dialogue within our own community and with other communities as well.
Wow. I'm just speechless after that. I mean, from each of your experience, which is great to hear your input from your angle of the mirror, I think is very important. And I like how Kim said, you do to people is something that we need to always be mindful of, and not just talk to people, but we have to be mindful of what we're doing to people. And that ties into the Linwood experience. What was done? How do we undo some of the things that have affected the equity within our communities? And then we got to learn how to reach the different diversity within the Hispanic community. So there's a big conversation that needs to be had. And I feel that this commission is doing the right thing with initiating the conversation. This hasn't happened in Brookhaven before. This isn't happening in many countries or many cities in the state of Georgia. So I commend Brookhaven for having this conversation to begin this dialogue a serious dialogue that has to happen. So thank each of you for your response to that question. The final question, and then I'm going to open it up to the room, to the audience. What guidance or principles do you employ to initiate and ensure honest, authentic conversations with community members around the topic of race and equity? What guidance or principles do you employ to initiate and ensure honest, authentic conversations with the community members around the topics of race and equity? I'll start with Charlene first.
So here's where I get excited. As Chairman mentioned, I am the founder and the president of It's Just Us Productions. It's Just Us Productions is a multimedia, cross-media production company. We do radio and TV. We recently launched our international brand in Ghana, West Africa. We have created a non-judgmental platform where people can share their authentic stories in their voice, capturing what I call the middle story, which is what we're talking about here today. These conversations dispels myths and they build hope. I also have It's Just Us in the Community, which you mentioned. Basically, what I'm saying is the principle that I have, the guidance that I have to make sure that I ensure open and honest conversations is because of who I am versus what I'm trying to create. I have gotten a thicker skin to be able to handle it when it comes back, because I want to deliver what I believe is truth, because there's healing in truth. And if we can get to that point, we would have less dis-ease among us as people. So I am committed. I am always committed. I will be committed to creating platforms for people to tell and to share their honest stories as transparent as they can be. I understand also that with that knowledge and that understanding, there also comes an accountability, because if we don't know, we don't have to do anything with it. But as soon as we know, we are responsible and accountable to do something with that information.
So in thinking about this, I first thought about the concept of communicating through listening. You know, that we always start talking first, but sometimes it's really good. The best form of communication is just to listen. The second I thought about was to lead with vulnerability and honesty and a personal story. And then to be brave and bold, to name inequity when you see it, to name pain, to tell your story, no matter what it is, and not hold it back, because that way people can't continue to perpetuate untruths and falsehoods that make them comfortable. And it's not necessarily to make someone else uncomfortable, but it is to tell your truth so that people can respond to it.
I don't like going last. Not with these two ladies here. I think for me, transparency is critical, and I agree. You know, being able to grow some thick skin, being able to take it. I'm looking at Aixa right now because Aixa used to work with me, and if you want honest feedback, call Aixa, because she will tell you how it is. She used to come into my office and let me have it, you know, just tell me the truth. But I always appreciated that because I knew it was coming from a good place. And I thought that as long as somebody's telling you the truth, even if you don't want to hear it, I can deal with that. You know, I can work with that. I appreciate that. But you have to have the thick skin to be able to take it. And then you have to be able to speak truth yourself. So I think it's transparency all the way is my guiding principle, and always trying. I think when you're transparent, people realize that, they believe you, you know, they get a little disarmed, they're welcoming. And even if they disagree with you, they're willing to engage in dialogue with you. And what's missing in this country is open and honest dialogue. We've had enough BS to go around for many, many years. People are walking on eggshells. They're afraid of sitting in a room and telling the truth, you know, and I don't blame them. you know, on social media now, all I post about is my family, my job, and if I'm watching a basketball game, right? When the Hawks were in the playoffs. And that's it, because anything else, I'm afraid of the backlash, right? I'm afraid I'm gonna, you know, somebody's gonna call my board, or I'm gonna get fired, and that's where we are. That's where we are. And so it's almost impossible to have open dialogue because there aren't safe places for us to do that. But I think people appreciate when you come with transparency and when you're vulnerable because you're being honest.
Outstanding. Great points. Having thick skin is very important. This isn't an easy conversation to have. And everybody is not willing to have this conversation. I'll be quite honest with you. I've heard from several individuals in the community, and you know, everybody doesn't want to have the conversation. But I think having thick skin, understanding the difficulties that is being produced because of not having a conversation is very, very dangerous to our communities. So we must have the conversation to begin to have transparency and open dialogue about what we are dealing with that have been around for years, many, many, many years. Can it change? Yes, it can change. But in order to bring about change, you have to bring about thoughts on how to change it. So thank each of you for your insightfulness and very, very, very approachable dialogue as it relates to this very important and necessary conversation. So I'm going to open it up to the commissioners. Commissioner Tom Woodward. 1 minute, they want to get you the mic. And then I'm going to stand up.
John, you shared with us a letter that you had received, which questioned what our purpose was as a commission. And you let us each sit with that for a day or two. And then you may have gotten input from some of us, but you shared with us how you responded to it. And during that time, when I first saw the letter that you had received and heard your response, my thinking on it kind of evolved. At first, I was a little bit defensive about it. And then I thought, you know, it's a good thing that people are asking. It's a good thing that they're asking the question, what is this? Because they're otherwise going to jump to conclusions about what it is we might be doing and what we might ultimately recommend. And I thought you had a very thoughtful response to that. I just wanted to comment on that, and I didn't know if anybody else wanted to follow up on that, but I appreciate you responding in our behalf the way you did. That's all. It wasn't really a question for the panel, although that was excellent. I don't know how to follow all of your presentations. That was really good.
Thank you for your recognition of that. Oh, chat. Okay. I'll come to Mindy in a minute. Thank you, Commissioner Woodward, for that. And I think the importance of having these tough conversations important as we get questions. This commission was put in place by the council and the mayor to have the conversation. And we welcome citizens to give us input. As a matter of fact, that's our big push right now. We're out in the communities to begin to have dialogue with the citizens so that they can understand the importance of this conversation and they can understand our mission and our goals of what we're doing. And I try to prepare that with help and crafting this language and the message, because this is a team effort. And if we are sharing with individuals the truthfulness and being very transparent with our responses, people are going to begin to understand that, okay, this isn't something that's just there to create issues. We are examining what's in front of us today. So thank you, Commissioner, for that. Yes, ma'am. Vice Chair, Commissioner.
Talking to the mic, but not really a question for the panel, but just really a suggestion and a recommendation. I would like to see the next few meetings in the community. So I am advocating that we go to Linwood Park and have our next meeting there, and we go to Beaufort Highway and we have our meeting there. And I think it would be, this has been wonderful, and I really like the shift in tonight's conversation. It's been really powerful, and I think it'd be awesome if we could get a community member engaged, and whether it be a panel or to, just like Charlene and others have shared stories tonight about their experiences in those communities, to get them engaged, because when they're engaged, they go out and they can be advocates of our work. And we need evangelists in the community to talk about the work that we're doing. So we invite them into the room, they're more likely to go tell others about the great work that we're doing and the fact that they were asked to be included. So I just would suggest that we do that.
I love that recognition. Duly noted. All right. Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, yes.
So this is a partial question for the panel. And I know I'm not a commissioner, but something that you said was very critical that I need to bring up to your attention. So today's threat and the things that we're dealing with goes about finding a safe space to have open dialogue and transparent communications. If you don't have the conversations, whether the space is safe or not, here's what's happening. The near peer competitors that the United States are facing, China, Iran, Russia, are already filling that space with the divisions and the seeds that sow the division. And the one thing that I'll ask of the panel and the rest of the commission is to think about the Roman Empire and the fall of the Roman Empire and what triggered the fall of the Roman Empire and how seeds of the division were sown and it crumbled from within, starting with the government. But the people stood by idly and watched the empire crash and burn. The United States of America is the last greatest empire put on this earth. For whatever reason, whatever your beliefs are, and one of the things that I told John earlier as I was coming up the highway, it is not a perfect union. There are none. We're in search of a perfect union. But that takes everybody's input and everybody getting in that boat and rowing together, and we'll get there a little bit faster. And it'll be a smoother ride, but it's got to start with you. And if you don't have that conversation, whether the space is safe or not, and put the comments out there, I guarantee you somebody else is already putting it out there for us. And it's sowing the seeds that we're having all of this chaotic repercussions because we're not having those conversations. So, ma'am, that was a great idea to get out into the community and bring that involvement in. And then that creates your safe space that you're looking for.
Thank you, General. Any others? Minnie, do we have anyone online that have? We have a comment. Who was it from? And you want to read it out?
I just wanted to just wanted to share that Commissioner Moses says town halls are a great idea.
Thank you. All right, very good. Any other questions for our panelists? Yes, Mrs. Nisi, Janice. She wants me to call her Janice. She don't want me to call her Mrs. Nisi. I was raised in the South. Okay, Janice.
Kind of a question. How do people say minorities or people along Beaufort Highway or where the Hispanics, I don't know how to say it. How do people feel about how they're treated in Brookhaven? Like the Hispanic people or Asian people, or I lived on Beaufort Highway when I was a single person, a long time ago, like 40 years ago. But, and it has changed since then. So, and I think the affordability has gone way down. And some of the properties, like where I used to live, has gone down. So how are the people feeling about that? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Great question. Thank you.
I think we have to, well, I can speak for the people that we serve, and the community that we serve tends to be, in many cases, newly arrived immigrants, a lot of undocumented folks, folks that don't have a voice, and folks that don't, and this is not all of the folks we serve, but a lot of them. Folks, and they are mistreated no matter where they are. They're taken advantage of. People know they don't have documents, or people know that they're probably not going to fight for their rights. They're not going to call the police if they're victims of crime because they're afraid of the repercussions. They're afraid of being deported, so there's a lot of issues just around where they are in life, right? I think overall, and I grew up in the area. Again, I used to walk from Briarwood Apartments down to Northeast Plaza, worked at the Old Country Buffet, and worked at the JCPenney outlet, and took the 39 bus to see my girlfriend, who's now my wife, by the way. So, and the 39 still runs up and down Beaufort Highway. So I know the streets, and I live, I walk those streets, but I think that in some cases, it's gotten better to some extent in terms of, there's an awareness and a celebration of diversity, right? So somebody said it, people come from across the country to see Beaufort Highway, right? To see the diversity. So we now celebrate diversity. When I was growing up, I was an other. It was either black, at Cross Keys, you were black, white, or other. And that's what the little box that we checked. That doesn't exist now. But in many cases, it's gotten worse because people can't afford their rents, they're being driven out. And once, your lot in life hasn't changed. We're still dealing with folks that are the lowest of the low in terms of the way people treat them, right? And people in our own community mistreat them too. So.
Wow, I remember Old Country Buffet. I used to go there on Sunday evenings. Oh my goodness, food was good. All right, any other questions from the floor before we? Oh, I thought actually you raised your hand, you were just adjusting your glasses, okay. All right, no other questions. Join me in thanking our panelists this evening, Kim, Charlene, Santiago. Thank you guys very much. Awesome, awesome. Thank you for your input. And Santiago, we'll be in touch. Thank you. Okay, next I'm going to bring up Leslie. And Leslie's going to come up and she's going to share some information with you on our community engagement. And Leslie, we have to work in taking the meeting to, yeah, we got to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm really only going to be up here a minute. Stephen and Mindy are coming up, but I want to share that we have set this thing up. We've designed it. We have framed it. We have put it on pretty paper, but we need to pass the baton to you guys now to really move this community engagement. This was the whole conversation. We cannot get to the end of this and not say that we have not done everything we can to hear from everyone we can. And we'll keep up coming with new ideas. You asked to be out in community next month, we'll get you out there. But we really need to pass this baton. And I'd encourage you to think about it. All the circles you're in, to think about, your Bible study group, to think about your book club, to think about the 3 or 4 people you walk with. That's a civic conversation. That's a civic dinner. Doesn't have to be a formal setting to do it. All the connections and stuff. Of course, work's an easy one over lunch, right? But just think about it that way. And I'd also encourage you to think about it, not just the folks who would be cool with having this conversation, but what about the folks who don't know how to have this conversation, right? What about the people who probably after last year are kind of dying to figure out, how do I talk about this? Who do I talk to about this, right? What's a frame? We have a safe space for you to be able to invite them and see if they maybe be willing to speak. So Stephen's gonna come and you're gonna hear from each other, but we really need to turn it over. We're making a push this month and next month to make sure that we hear from as many people as possible. And then also remember, the subcommittees will talk to individuals and survey and other methods, focus groups around your particular topic. So this is the time to say that we really have heard from community. And once we start that, we don't want it to stop. This is like a drum beat. We're starting, right? So these recommendations, when we make them in December, you want the room packed, right? With the folks who were a part of it. We're starting something here and we're just at the front of it. So that's my piece. Somebody, I saw a hand. Yes, ma'am. Oh, I'm so sorry. And I think no, for that. I know.
Question is, civic dinners, are we trying to focus strictly on Brookhaven residents? Or are we taking it out? I just heard you mention, in your office, some folks don't go to church in Brookhaven.
So we absolutely want to hear from Brookhaven residents and citizens, but we know that just like you cross the street from Atlanta to Brookhaven, there's no neat, kind of division that separates it. I'd encourage you to have this conversation, to have it wherever and whenever you can, and to feed it in. Now, we're going to give survey results and numbers from Brookhaven residents as a part of this big report. But the feeling, the sentiment, the people, where people's heads are and hearts are, you want to get that from wherever you can. So I'm going to actually turn it over to Stephen, but we're with you. It's time to pass the baton. We need to hear from you.
Thank you, Leslie. So you all had a chance to participate in a civic dinner this evening before we went into our dinner portion in our meeting. And so I want to just kind of check in and see what you got out of that experience. Does anybody want to share some thoughts or feedback on what was the conversation like at your individual tables? Any thoughts or takeaways? Sure.
No, I'm just saying, I had one, and it was just, I loved hearing the personal story and about the heroes and sheroes. I loved hearing about the heroes and sheroes in people's lives that have gotten them to this point.
Yeah, that's a big part of the civic dinners experience. You cannot separate out your personal experience from the conversation. That's always brought to the table. Great point. Yep. What else? Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed was just hearing everyone's background and how they got to Brookhaven. So it was just really interesting hearing from residents who have been living in Brookhaven before Brookhaven became a city. And then someone like me who's only been living in Brookhaven for a little over a year, just seeing what Brookhaven looks like now. And then when I hear about stories about Linwood Park and the community on Beaufort Highway, it just really kind of puts it into, I guess, a realization of how the community has grown. So it's just very interesting to hear those different perspectives.
Absolutely, right. We're all learning in this process, right? This conversation brings out a lot of history. All right, other thoughts? Anything from this table here or the table on the end? Anybody want to offer a comment?
I think it was interesting to hear about, like what past events or policies that have contributed to the racial inequality in America. So that was quite interesting to hear, because to understand where we are now, we have to look at where we've come from. Because if we don't examine our history, then we continue to repeat the same mistake. So we talked about redlining and about credit, how people and how that affects schools. And if people don't have access to good education, they don't have upward mobility. So that was just interesting to learn.
Thank you. Those policies are eye-opening. It is a full-on education to understand what all has happened and what's still in place in a lot of our communities, right? Yielding those same results, right? Anything down here on the end? Not to put anybody in the hot seat, but just to give you an opportunity to share if you want to share. Anybody? No pressure, no pressure. Well, I want to transition now to a time where we're going to hear from a few folks who were part of civic dinners over the past several weeks. And before I do that, I do just want to shout out a huge thanks to our commissioners who hosted commissioner-only civic dinners. We have Dr. Tiffany Russell, Charlene Bowden, Chairman John Funny, and then Commissioner Davis Burnett as well. So thank you. And we had a couple of in-person, a couple of virtual, some great options for people to plug into those conversations. So now we're going to hear from a few folks on their civic dinners experience, what that was like to join with others and to dig into the questions that you all got a chance to review tonight as well. So I'm going to ask Dr. Russell, will you start us off? Sure.
Well, good evening again. It was really exciting to host a commissioner-only civic dinner, and I'm really looking forward to hosting some of the big ones as we are getting ready for our community engagement, our big push. I thought I'd share very, very briefly just a few tips that I thought would be helpful and just amplify what we've already heard with the panel. And this quote that I wrote down that's going to stick with me forever is that thing that keeps happening. That thing that keeps happening. That thing could be a lot of things that are happening in our communities. And we are charged with having this conversation about race. This conversation that we have as, in my estimation, very difficult time having a conversation about what race is and how it plays out in our world. And so we are charged with a very big task, and that is to have a conversation with our community about this thing that keeps happening. So to that end, we had I hosted a civic dinner where Commissioners Williams, Moses, Sigmund, Korn, Pascal, Bowden, and Kim attended. We were virtual, and I prefaced the meeting by saying we may not be here very long, given that we're not eating and drinking 2+ hours later. You know, this thing that we want to talk about is tough. And I want to thank them for their transparency, their vulnerability, and being present in that moment and sharing some very intimate and important stories. When we host, and I hope that we all have an opportunity to serve as host, the guide that Civic Dinners provides us with is a very helpful and illustrative guide, very thoughtfully created. I love odd numbers, but you have a beginning, middle, and end. My recommendation, my first lesson learned is try to get to the end. Even if you have to skip a question, you want to end the conversation with a call to action. So that's my first aha moment. The other thing that I want to offer is that the ground rules are just so beautiful. I like the word agreement. When we read the ground rules together, we asked for agreement, that we would in that space take care of each other and ourselves. And as you can see the host guide, and you can see some of the words that pop up in those ground rules: authenticity, willing to learn, lived experiences, suspend judgments and assumptions. And as one of the things that I do when I host these civic dinners is I pass the baton, if you will, or the sheet around so that we can begin hearing the voices of people in the room immediately. And that helps folks who could be a little nervous about being in the room, whether it's virtual and in person, being able to participate. And so another helpful hint is, as a host, immediately encourage people to begin sharing by reading those ground rules, and then of course ask for agreement that everyone will do their very best to follow them as they go through the evening with you. And the last thing that I'll offer by way of helpful hints, if you will, and experiences, is that silence is okay. As a teacher, an educator, and a talker, I'm used to filling the void with words. And it's okay that we are silent as we are reflecting on these very big questions. These are questions that many people haven't even begun to think about or have never been asked before. And so as we are engaging in these conversations, silence is okay. And then as we begin to answer them, we can answer them the best that we can from our own lived experiences. And so when we have stories to share, we're learning from one another. And that's when I think the magic happens, if you will. So silence is okay. Those ground rules help to situate the conversation and also allow us to amplify what's really important when we have these conversations outside of the civic dinner model. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you. So beautifully stated. Thank you so much for that. I'm going to ask Commissioner Todd if she will share a couple of points with us as well about her experience. Yes.
I'm kidding and put my glasses on all dignified and what have you. So I'll just stand right here and pretend. I'm not a doctor. I don't play one on TV. But we had a great civic dinner. I went to the one that Davis, Commissioner Davis, what's Davis's last name? Burnett, hosted at the Old Blind Dog. And I got to tell you, agree totally with everything you said and what I left wanting, because we talked so much and it was really rich and good conversation. And because we were practicing, you know, as a group, the action item though, the what can you personally do as a result of maybe some of the conversation to you know, elicit change in the community is really key. So I love the end in mind, even if you miss the middle question. So I would certainly say that. One of the things that happened also is there was such a sense of community. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 of us, 5, I guess, including me, did we have 6? So Davis is the only one missing. It felt good to be in conversation. I felt like, you know, we've been in Brookhaven, we're going into year 16. And I got to tell you, that was probably one of the best feels of community that I've had. And I know my neighbors, you know, and we sort of know each other, but that felt good. So I think that the setup, the opportunity is there. As the panel was saying, it's very, it's a challenging and sometimes difficult, probably always difficult conversation for some more than others. But I would say go with curiosity and recognize that the people that are going to show up for the future sessions, we didn't have a choice, we were voluntold, but the people that are going to show up, they're either curious or they have a story. And so either way, it's a good space, especially if those of us that host it can ensure and create safe space. It's a great opportunity to learn, you know, and you know, listen kept coming up. And I say, in order to listen, you got to be curious. So take a minute. Don't go in thinking of all the things you're going to say and the points that you've got to get across. Go in curious and the outcome will be just tremendous. And then I want to give a plug for civic dinners. I'm hosting one on the 9th at Arnett's Chop Shop. So of all the different opportunities that, you know, or restaurants that are doing it, here's an easy one. You don't even have to pay. You don't have to worry about, you know, how you're going to divvy up the check. Do it. I think everybody ought to do it. And if you feel like your voice is not strong enough or you don't have the confidence or what have you, you got a script. You know, partner with, tell me your name again. Yes. Partner with Aixa because she's outspoken and she'll tell you. So let her, I mean, really, if you feel like you want to be a part of the community and you want to be a part of the civic dinners and yet you don't feel comfortable sort of running one, then lock arms with somebody else and do a joint venture, but do make it happen because it makes a difference for our community.
What great words. Everybody's curious or everybody has a story. That's really important to remember, that everybody enters into this conversation with curiosity and with a story, you know? Okay, all right. Commissioner Woodward.
Thank you. I'll try to be brief. I had the fortune of attending 2 different civic dinners. One of those was the one hosted by Davis Burnett at Old Blind Dog Irish Pub. And anytime you hear the words Irish pub, you want to go there. And thank you, Connie, for bringing the wine. She was the only one who read the instructions about BYOB. The rest of us just showed up. The second one was hosted by John Funny at Italiano, which is a favorite restaurant near me, near my neighborhood. So why not go there, right? I enjoyed both of them. There was robust conversation. No one held back. I think there are a lot of type A people in this room. we got to know our fellow commissioners better and appreciate our diverse experiences and with inequity. And my experience with the one that Connie and others attended, and it is amazing that 4 or 5 of us were there, the room got smaller as we started talking. I'm from a small town west of Tallahassee, and there were people from Moultrie, people who lived in Valdosta, people who had gone to school in Tallahassee at FAMU or Florida State University. I mean, all of a sudden, I got to know all of you as people, and that's what this is really all about. You know, we're talking about inequity, we're talking about race, and it's about policies and data and all this stuff. It's really down to people. And as Brigadier General Dix reminded us, one person can make a difference in your life, your second grade teacher, your mother sitting down with you and explaining some of these things to you. So always give that opportunity to yourself to be a mentor. And in these conversations, I'm always reminded of something that was a lasting quote from Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said, when you disagree with someone, disagree in such a way that they will want to join you. So yes, I'm going to be one of the hosts for one of these other larger dinners, inviting other people. As a matter of fact, our neighborhood is going to issue a blanket email to all of our neighborhood to attend these on August 9th. So I'm hoping we'll get a good reaction out of La Vista Park for that. Thank you.
And Commissioner Marco Palma to share his thoughts. Can we go up there?
Yeah, so I was also at Old Blind Dog, and for me, it was a really nice experience. The fact that it was casual in a small group, because I feel like a lot of these issues and the challenges that we talk about seem to be larger than life issues that have to be made and or talked about in conference rooms. So it felt nice to kind of sit down and have a chicken sandwich with someone and just kind of talk about these things and not necessarily have to figure out a solution, but just kind of hear someone else out and kind of understand where they're coming from. But yeah, it was nice. It was open. I feel like if you host one, be prepared to be vulnerable and be honest. I think maybe a civic brunch would be nice. Yeah. So yeah. So but yeah. So that was my experience, and thank you to everyone else that went. So because I know it takes at least some bravery to show up. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So just to touch on what we've talked about so far tonight and what the panel brought to our attention a few times is this is a place to have the conversation. The conversation can start through a civic dinner, right? You may not have the whole conversation. You're not going to have the whole conversation in one night, but this is a safe space that you can create, that you can invite people into, and to start to get to know people, as Commissioner Woodward said, as just people. You can start to build those connections and start to understand the common ground that you do share. And that's a powerful thing that Commissioner Todd said, years in Brookhaven, and that this is just such a wonderful and new and fresh setting to be able to establish those connections with people that you didn't know a year ago, right? Pretty remarkable. So Leslie is 100% right. We are in the baton passing mode. We are in the call to action mode with civic dinners, and I want to kind of walk you through a few things, and then I'll hand it back over. We want you to really take the collateral that we've sent out. So the Instagram posts, the email text to invite people to your own dinners. Please look at that on Basecamp and in your email. We don't want to just overwhelm you with information, but we are asking you to kind of take on the role of host here, and we want to give you all the information that you need so that you don't have to create it from scratch, right? So please post about civic dinners on your social media channels. We sent out the Instagram post and information about August 9th, which I'll get into in a second. Please just share that on your Facebook, your Instagram, however, whatever platforms you're on. Please share that, because the more buzz we can generate within the city, that drives registration. I want to call out Kiana Perkins, who's an intern in the communications department. Let's give it up for Kiana, please. She is incredible, and I'm so glad to be working with her. She is doing just incredible outreach to apartment communities, to businesses, to homeowners associations, pretty much any contact list they have at City Hall. She is taking it and running with it, sending out emails and following up with phone calls with community organizations to see if they will host a civic dinner or if they will send out information about the citywide event on August 9th. So I just want to say thank you for your work. Yes. Mhm.
On Nextdoor, the website or the app Nextdoor, I know it gets a lot of engagement from the community, and I think the whole of Brookhaven is in it. I mean, if someone is missing their dog or whatever is going on, you know, you'll find a lot of engagement there. And you people, I mean, they do put comments, so I think that'll be a good place to put that, because I know the city of Brookhaven engages the community in that.
Yeah, we are. She mentioned Nextdoor. We are going to post that on Nextdoor. Oh yes, thank you. Okay, well, yes, there will be some of those. But yeah, sorry.
That's needed. I'm curious to understand sort of the organizing of it, of the event. So if I'm posting on my social media or inviting folks, how do you manage that? Because in my head, the 6 or 8 that we had, I wouldn't want to go any further than that to be able to have really good conversation. On the flip side, if we have 16 show up, do you have extra hosts that would support it? How does that work?
So are you talking about the ones that you would host yourself? Okay. Yeah, I'll jump to that. The capacity on the August 9th event, since that's what we're talking about here, is 250 people. The city is paying for dinner for all of those people. It's a lot of money, right? Yes, amen. Let's the city is very invested in making sure that this conversation is broad, is inclusive. We have the 4 restaurants that we've talked about thus far. We're working on trying to secure a couple more restaurants along Beaufort Highway to add to the mix and the feel of that event. So 250 people, we need all of your help. Every list, every idea, every contact, every group that you're a part of, we are going to need everybody rowing in the same direction and blasting this out on social media. That's going to be Monday, August 9th at 6:30. We'll follow up again with some more information after this. Yeah, so we will have enough hosts. You don't have to host a dinner of 16 people because they'll be at different tables throughout the restaurant. You may have some people that sign up for Arnett's, some people that sign up for Petite Violette. So wherever they register, we'll make sure that they have the information to know where to go. But we do need, our goal is 20 hosts among your group and online. 20 people to sign up to host civic dinners on that night, okay? Because we will need about 40 hosts to make this happen, okay? 40 people to make this happen. And so we're gonna have to find 20 other hosts in the community from community organizations. And so you have your little green sheet here. Please go ahead and fill that out. And if you can host on August 9th, we really need you to host on August 9th. Yes.
If I want to be a host, I want to invite my neighbors. Do I have a tap? Can I say the first 6 or 7 that sign up are going to be my table? Or is that how that works? Or
So there are 2 different things here. I want to separate that out. Between now and August 9th, we're asking you all to host in your communities, okay? So that would be your neighborhood. That might be your neighborhood conversation between now and August 9th. This is tough because one may potentially eat into the other. That's okay. That's all right. But we want everybody to host a dinner around Brookhaven between now and August 9th. Our goal for that is 25 events. That's the number 2. So in person or virtual, you can do it online, you can do it at your home, at a park or recreation center, wherever you're comfortable. But that group, you do want to keep to 6 to 8 people. 10 is the most I've ever seen. You don't really want to go with 10. You want to try to keep it to 6 or 8 people. And when you set up your event on civicdinners.com, you can set a maximum amount, after which point it will say full and it won't allow people to register anymore. So if you set 8 people, then you're just going to get 8 people. All right. You don't have to worry about 25 registering and showing up to your house with a casserole. Yeah, on the 9th, it's invite everybody and their mama. Yeah, and we'll deal with it when they get there.
Yeah.
That's our job. Some may be in your group, some may be in a group that's facilitated by somebody else. Yeah. Yes.
About 1 in 4 residents in Brookhaven are Hispanic. You know, many of them are Spanish speaking only. Would we consider hosting some dinners where the conversation is in Spanish at some restaurants? You know, yeah, I know you say you're going to get more Beaufort Highway restaurants, but yeah, because the list that I saw, it just seemed there's no Beaufort Highway there. And it, you know, is there a way to make the Latino community feel included by hosting some of these dinners in Spanish with maybe somebody from us?
The answer is yes. We're working with Los Vecinos, the Beaufort Highway, to host dinners between now and August 9th. That's a part of their regular MO in the community. That's a part of their outreach mechanism. And so they are starting to host these dinners. They're working with us on potentially translating the conversation and being able to use that in the community, as well as on August 9th, potentially having conversations at all the different places wherever people register in Spanish as well as English. And so we're working with them, kind of working through that partnership to see what that looks like. But the short answer is yes.
So we'll take one more question and then we're going to close this portion because we have to go into public comments.
I think I heard you finish with to address my question. In addition to having a Spanish location, a location where Spanish is spoken, but if at the dinners that we do have, and if it's clear in the registration link and making sure that our information is translated, but it should be clear that there will be a Spanish speaking table. More than just a translator, I think that having a table where these conversations are had naturally at the table. And so I don't think it always just has to be a Spanish restaurant, but the restaurants where we're at, making sure that the people who RSVP maybe should be able to, and I don't know if that's already there on the RSVP information, but should be able to indicate whether they speak Spanish primarily. And when we set them up in tables, we take the initiative to put them with people that they can communicate in their natural language. Cool.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, just making sure that we'll have Spanish speakers at the same tables as well. So just to wrap up real quickly, there are a few things. Please post on social media. Please host an in-person dinner between now and August 9th. These are circles that you're already a part of. You can host on civicdinners.com, create that profile and create your event. Our goal is 25 events. And then on August 9th, our goal is to get 250 people out across Brookhaven. It'll be the night of dinners. And we would really like to have 20 of you volunteer to host. Like you heard tonight, you can do this. There's a guide. You can read the questions. You can walk people through this. You are eminently qualified. And so that's our ask for Civic Dinners tonight. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. Mindy's going to walk us through some of our other elements and.
Yes. So some of you asked about the little half sheet. I'm just going to follow up with you. The checklist, that is your ticket out the door. So make sure you hand that to Stephen on your way out and take a look and consider it. The thing that I wanted to talk about are our other community engagement events. So we all recognize that there are going to be residents that just don't jump onto civicdinners.com to sign up as much as we would like them to. So we are going to them. And that's what these community pop-ups are about. And for the most part of our 6 community pop-ups, they're filled except for 2 spots, one this Saturday and one on Tuesday. And I would love to fill up those 2 spots tonight if possible. So look back there for the date and location, and yeah, let us know if you can make it. And then in the month of August, we're having council district discussions. These are the presentation / open discussions that we're having in August, one in each district. And so those signups are in the back as well. A little different format, more of a sort of a traditional public meeting event, but we need people to be there too, to show up to represent the commission. So please, if you're available on one of those dates, sign up. That's it.
Thank you, Mindy. Next on the agenda, and we're going to move rapidly, but I have to open up for public comment, being that we are a commission with the city of Brookhaven. This is our time where we open the public meeting, should I say the public comment section of the meeting for public comment. This could be from any individual attending in the audience, any commissioners. Each person would get 3 minutes to speak. And we have an allotment of 30 minutes, but we don't have to use all 30 minutes. And if you're not able to speak tonight, your name will remain on the list for the next meeting, which is in August. So at this time, I'll open up for public comment. Mindy, do we have anyone in the attendees list on Zoom?
No comments on Zoom. We do have a public comment from someone viewing on Facebook.
Sure.
She'd like to know how children in the community can become involved with the commission.
Wonderful question. When this commission started, we tried very hard to get students from different high school and middle school to participate. We tried getting students from Oglethorpe University to participate, and no one wanted to come aboard. But we do have representation from these entities on the commission. If they would like to participate, they can come to the civic dinner, right, Steve? They can come to the civic dinner and engage in the conversation. And I would be willing to make certain that we reach out to any youth, any parents that would like to have their youth to attend the civic dinners. We'll make accommodations for them. Yes. Yeah. We can jot that down and take a look at it. That's a good idea to engage the youth, because again, we're building a community for whom? Our future generation. So it's great to have the youth in the room. Oh, she was saying, is it possible, thank you, is it possible for us to have a student civic dinner for the students? So I just want to repeat it so the people online would hear. So we'll definitely look into that. Would there be any other public comment? None? Zach is saying none. Okay, I see none. So I will now close the public comment section of this meeting. And Mindy has already gone over the upcoming events that's coming up. So that's already been done. Please complete your feedback, your surveys. Give us your thought on how you thought the meeting went. We really value these input. So please complete your survey when you receive that email from Mindy. Is there anything else for business of this great commission? Let me say thank you to Zach and Kiana from the city of Brookhaven. Thank you. Again, thank you to the Doubletree team for the surveying and the technology. Thank you very much. This works really well. Thank you to Chrysalis Labs, a consultant, as well as CSI, who's not here, but they've been working again in the background with the efforts of this commission. And thank you to each of you for your hard work and your dedication and your passion for the work that we're doing. I see Steve raise his hand in the back. And a QR code. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you for facilitating the civic dinners. This is really good, and our conversations have been good at the civic dinner. So thank you also, Stephen, for working on that. Is there any other business at hand? Any other business? Seeing none, all the commissioners' hearts and minds are clear. Thank you very much. If there are no other business at hand, I would call the meeting adjourned. Any objection? No objection. Okay. Have a good night.